Hey, mamas. We're back for another episode of the Balanced Working Mama podcast. How are you doing? What is going on? How's it going? I'm so glad to be here to talk with you today and to just chat. And I'm so excited about today's episode because we do have a special guest for today. Um, there's a lot of good things happening. And again, I just can't say enough how grateful I am for some of those things. So, with that, let's get into a check in. So, I am feeling rested. I'm feeling rested. I'm feeling good. I don't think I mentioned it on the last podcast episode, but about a week ago now, last weekend, I took a break from a lot of things. It was actually during Valentine's Day weekend. I took a break, just completely unplugged, fully got off of my phone. Um, C3 went to grandma's, even our dog Bruce went to grandma's, and me and my husband just relaxed together for a staycation. Like it was amazing. I knew that I wanted to get away one last time before we have baby girl. And the way that our timeline is going, it was questionable whether that was going to happen because, to be honest, February is winding down, which is great. But March is going to be busy for us just in terms of life things happening. We've got the move, we've got the retreat happening early March, some work stuff with my husband that needs to happen in March. So um, I had no idea when I would be able to just get away with my husband before we have two kids. But I got that opportunity. He surprised me last minute and told me that we were going to go leave our house and just go chill somewhere else for the weekend. And I loved it. It was everything I needed. And I think, with just the ramp up and the stress, I'll say stress, of really preparing for the retreat and making sure all that stuff is gotten done and prepared and registration is closed, and we're gonna have amazing time with 16 women coming together to just breathe and talk and to communicate and to celebrate and to just feel rejuvenated and support one another, like all of that. I needed a break. So I feel a lot better now that I took that break, and it's definitely got me thinking about how can I make this a more regular thing for myself. I want to unplug from Instagram and Balanced Working Mama at least one day a week. And it's tough. I actually was having this conversation with my husband. He reminded me that fun work, passionate work is still work. And that is definitely the case. And definitely what I've been feeling is that, sometimes I forget that balanced working mama is work because it feels so good to do. I love it. And it feels like another one of my babies. I crave it. I think about it all the time. I love what we've built. I love what we're doing. I love where it's going. And it's still work. It's still energy that I'm putting out into something. And that means I need to continue to refuel, continue to give back to myself. And so I loved that I took that break, and I'm definitely hoping to do it more. What about y'all? Do y'all do that? Like, I know that people do it taking like time away, like more consistently, more regularly. Do you do it? And if so, let me know because I'm genuinely curious, and I'm seriously thinking about it for myself. Um, whether it be a Saturday or a Sunday, just unplug. Preferably Sundays, but I gotta get my timelines right. I do a lot of things on Sundays, but I can maybe shift it to Saturdays. I don't know. Either way, I'm working on that for myself. But otherwise, still feeling good, y'all. I'm currently 31 weeks pregnant. I'll be 32 weeks, well, by the time that many of you hear this. And so we're trucking along. It's so hard to believe that I will have two kids. Like, I don't know who allowed that. I don't know who looked at me and said, okay, you can have two kids. Like, I'm going to have two children, a house full of kids. What am I supposed to do? And so that's another thing I've really been trying to reach out to my mama supports and those of you in the Balanced Working Mama community as well who do have multiple children, just to kind of give me a glimpse of like, how was that transition for you between one kid to two? And you all have been so vocal and transparent and open with me about your experience, and I appreciate it. So I'm excited to go on this journey. You know, I've got about 8 more weeks to go and a lot more preparing to do, but I know that we'll be where we need to be when she gets here. So I'm not worried. You know, of course, there's tons to do, but we'll be fine. Everything will be as it should be, and all is well. So that is my check in. I hope that y'all are good as well. Let's talk about today's episode. So I'm super excited about this episode. It features one of my really good friends, Erica St. Bernard. She is an amazing licensed couple and marriage and family therapist, and she is just so passionate. I can't say enough good things about her. Not only have she and I collaborated professionally a number of times, but she has become such a good friend to me, really supported me in times when I really needed her. And I am excited to have the world open up again so I can see her again and hang out with her like I used to. But I'm so glad that she decided to stop by on the podcast today. So, hope you enjoy this episode with myself and Erica St. Bernard. Hey mama, I want to quickly tell you about the Empower Wellness Program. This is a dynamic 6-week group for working mothers who are tired of feeling overwhelmed, fatigued, burdened by mom guilt, but then also just not having enough time for themselves. This program takes all of that and transforms it into more wellness, more time for yourself, better priorities, community with other mothers, but then overall balance in your work, motherhood, and wellness. To learn more about the Empower Wellness Program, head over to balanceworkingmama.com. There you can find when the next program begins, what to expect, but then also how to sign up. Hope to see you in the next group. All right, mama. So we have a very special guest today. I'm so excited to talk with her. Fun story. She and I connected when I first moved to DC. It's so funny how just like timing works and connections work, just like all of that. We connected because I think she was listening to a Different Perspective podcast, way old school, super old school. And so we connected, but then also later on, a friend told me, a mutual friend was like, hey, you should connect with this person. I was like, up, already did. Step ahead of you. So it was
Yeah.
just funny how we got to know each other. And I just want to thank you for being one of the first people to reach out to me when I moved to DC for the first time. So our guest today is Erica St. Bernard. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're here today.
Sure. So yeah, Amber, I appreciate you as well. I mean, your podcast was so refreshing, and I was like, I've got to connect with her. And so when you said you were moving to the area and reach out, I was like, absolutely. And then we did, and like you said, our mutual friend was like, hey, and I was like, oh my gosh, we met already. This is perfect. So it was great. So I thank you for all the work that you do and all the ways that you've shown up. And so I am Erica St. Bernard, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, licensed in the state of Maryland. Originally practicing in the Bowie area, but now practicing virtually throughout the state. I provide couples counseling for pre engagement, premarital counseling, and then for those who are established in their marriage, really just wanting to support couples as they seek to be well, live well, and love well. And so that's kind of the push and the focus behind Your Life's Well, which is the name of my business. And I definitely work with women of color. Always get excited to work with women of color as they are preparing for marriage and or just preparing to live well, because I certainly think living well is something that runs a thread through the course of our entire lives, whether we get coupled and parent or not. But certainly just wanting to inspire wellness for women of color, families of color, and certainly for love relationships, so that we realize we have the skills and the talents and the wherewithal to love well and to love for a very long time.
Oh, I love it. That sounds so good. Like I felt that. I felt all of that. And I feel like it's so important to make space for that because I think
Mhm.
sometimes we assume that relationships will just come naturally or, that when you make the decision to have a long-term relationship with someone or partnership or get married that, all will be well, but that's just
Yeah,
not the case.
it's not.
And so I really wanted to have you on to talk about your work. One, and I talked about this a little bit before we started, is just in my work with moms, one thing that I noticed in is kind of like something that I want to work on in terms of the work for balanced working mama is that, we focus so much on, the woman, the mom,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
herself and her healing, her wellness. And a lot of the mamas have kind of said, like, hey, well, what about, if I want to work on my relationship with my
mm,
partner?
mhm,
What there? And I'm just
mhm,
like, oh, them? Okay.
mhm,
And so,
mhm, mhm.
and,
Yeah.
it has really challenged me. I'm so glad that they said that because it challenged me to think about, okay, how can I make more spaces and opportunities for us to really be thinking about this in addition
Mhm.
to our own wellness? And you were the perfect person to do it. And you were on my radar because I know you just wrote a book
I
all about
did.
all of this stuff. And it's called We Over Me Principles for Marital Partnership. So I guess I want to start with asking you what inspired you to write that book?
Mhm. So first, I'd have to say my husband is a self-published author, and so he thinks every Black person should write something and get it published. And so he was pushing me like, "You need to write a book," and I was like, "Yeah, but about what? I don't know." So a while that seed had been planted, but what I noticed was that no matter where my clients were coming from in terms of coupleships, whether they were newly married or had been married for 20 plus years, or deciding to get married, the same themes, the same principles kept coming up in session. And so I kept talking to couples about the need to shift from a mindset to a we mindset, and
Mhm,
to really get to this space where we could think about how do my decisions impact us. So from a we orientation. So really kind of
mhm,
just seeing that as a rhythm and a pattern and wanting to show up for couples in that way to provide them with a resource. Again, we can do couples work in session, but when you go home, you need a place to refresh your thoughts and to refresh what we talked about or to work it out. And so I tried to create a book that is informative, but is also a safe space for journaling too. I left some journaling prompts and some questions for you to ponder and reflect upon individually, but also with your partner in an effort to assist with the conversations about how we move to that space or that mind shift that then follows our action as well. The other piece is that I noticed so many of the relationship books that are out are not written by people of color. And
mhm,
even those that are written by Black men. And I love a
mhm.
Black man. Indeed, I do. I'm married to one and I have brothers and, people in my life who are Black men,
Yeah,
but they can't, I don't think it's their place to speak to Black women about how to love well. And
yeah.
so I wanted to be a voice for Black women as a Black woman to say, these are some of the things that you and I can consider as we're pondering what it means to be partnered in healthy love relationships, how we can show up. And so, again, back to my whole theme and concept of wanting to be a voice about how to be well, how to live well, and how to love well as a woman of color.
Oh, I love that. I feel like it's so needed, and I'm so glad you got that push from your husband to write it because you know so much about this. You have such a
Mm,
wealth of knowledge, and I do have the book. So, for any mom listening today, if anything that Erica says today inspires you or you want to dig deeper, definitely get the book, and we'll definitely talk about how to get the book at the end. But I want to talk about, the topic of, partnership and healthy relationships when it comes to mothers, because as you know, I work with moms and I wanted to ask you, what do you think maybe like the three biggest challenges you see mamas or mothers face when it comes to their partnerships?
sure. I think one of the first ones that is not, yeah, I'll just say it. One of the first ones is like that superwoman, supermom complex, where
Mhm.
it is, I must do everything. Our models as moms have not always been a good balance. And I'm sure you've talked to moms about the balance of priority of our wellness and our relationship. And so often we are trying to do everything. We're going to be an amazing mom. We're going to be an amazing cook. We're going to be an amazing housekeeper. We're going to be an amazing partner. We're going to be an amazing career woman. And we can do all those things. I'm not suggesting that that's impossible, but we can't do all of those things at the very same time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so a need to prioritize in this space in this time. Like in that first few weeks postpartum, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot more than heal and take care of
Mhm.
this little person. But we
Mm-mm.
keep trying. We're going to make a 7 course meal and we're going to have, wait a minute, but why? why put so much pressure? So I think that's a part of it is the pressure we put on ourselves,
Mhm.
again, with that superwoman or supermom complex that is really debilitating for some of us because we
Mhm.
feel like we're failing, but we're failing only because the bar has been set
So
extremely too
high.
high
Yeah.
and for no reason. Like, I don't think anybody is expecting, and if they are, please tell them to sit down somewhere and have
Mhm.
several seats. If they're expecting us to be able to run on full cylinders in the very early, parenting experience, because like we're sleep deprived and we are fatigued at a level that we've not known before. And
Mhm.
we're trying to still connect with our partner, still trying to learn this baby and what he or she needs from us. We're also trying to adjust to this new mom body that is not like the body we knew before. And
Mhm.
so all of those things are happening in the midst of trying to navigate these things. And so I think a remedy to that is to ask for help.
Yep.
And that's another thing for us that is hard because we've not really seen women ask for help. We've not seen models. Our moms and maybe aunties and whoever else kind of came before us didn't really model what it means to be a strong woman, be a courageous woman, be a career woman who also receives support from other people. Those other people could be partners, or it could be girlfriends, it could be neighbors, it could be people within our squad or our tribe or our crew, whatever we call our friends. We could really lean into those relationships in a way that would offer support where we might barter services, right? You cook meals for me this week and I got you next
Yep.
week. Like you watch the kid for me so I can get to the gym or spend time with my boo or whatever. So really figuring that out. I think the other thing about asking for help that is such a stickler comes up in couples work is asking for help even when it won't be done our way.
Ooh, ooh, we talk about that a
Right.
lot. Yes.
I know, because this and it comes to therapy with the couples. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
you asked me to do the laundry, and because I don't fold the baby's clothes the way you do, you say I didn't do it right. And
Mm,
so what happens though is one, we feel like, well, then I won't ask for help because it's not done my way. But the other message it sends is that I don't need your help when that's not true.
yep.
The truth is that we do need our partner's help. The truth is that our kids need to see both of us equally sharing the work of family life. That
Mhm.
it shouldn't just be that mommy does these things or that daddy does these things, but they see this symmetry at times where we share the work together because then it teaches them what to expect in terms of how partnership might look for them. And so
Yep.
it's a great benefit in that way. So the other thing is kind of, as you mentioned already, prioritizing our wellness as women, but
Mm,
also communicating our needs to support that.
mhm.
Because so often we are, whether it is, dealing with the postpartum space immediately after labor and delivery and healing through that season, and or just wanting to get back to ourselves, wanting to get back to fun, wanting to get back to fitness, wanting to get back to work and whatever other things we might want to do, and needing to ask for support to make that happen. I don't think our dreams have to sit in a cave until our kids are 18. I think we can be intentional to build, like, well, I'm just going to put that over there. Like, no, we can find ways to continue to fan those flames and make sure that we are attentive by speaking up. Though I think sometimes women hold on to resentment about the fact that they didn't get to do their thing because they became a mom. And
Mhm.
I think it's important for us to say to ourselves first, to own that I still want to do more than just be a mom. And I think that's phenomenal. You should be able to. You are able to. I
Mm,
think a part of it, though, is to ask for the support you need from your partner. And then the last thing I would say is prioritizing the wellness of the relationship
mm,
and clearly communicating what you both want and need. And so it's not just saying, I want more date time, I want more cuddles, and him saying, I want more sex. But really, what does that look like?
mhm.
How do we make that happen? What do we need to do during the week, during the day, during whatever time we have to make sure that we are planning time for couples check ins where we can have conversations about not just how was your day and how was work, but how are you and how are we?
Yep.
Is there anything I can do to support you? Are there ways that you have supported me that I'm appreciative of? Because those messages go a very long way. They suggest that not only have you heard me, but you've listened and you followed through and followed up on the things we agreed to.
Oh, this was so good. And it's definitely there's definitely tons of overlap in what I see too, with like the challenges that some of the moms face when it comes to their partnerships with their spouses and their partners. And like the one I wrote them all down, but like so many of them stand out for me. I think the one thing that I notice moms have the toughest time on is like the superwoman conflicts, like you talked about. And I think especially as Black mothers and Black
Yes.
women, oh, it's just so loaded. That's a whole other podcast episode.
A whole episode.
That's a whole other episode. But I noticed that it's like bit by bit, it has to be chipped away until finally that woman or that mama is at a place where she's like, you know what? I can have someone else do this for me. Or
Mhm,
it actually is okay for me to just sit. I do need to allow, this other person to do
mhm,
something their own way.
mhm,
And it's a process. It's a long process. But, I know for me, my experience has been watching super women all of my
mhm,
life, and
mhm.
growing up and thinking, ooh, I can't do that. So this just might not be for me. Um, and then
Sure.
having to
Mhm.
like rework that in my head and say, well, maybe there's another way. And so that really stood out for me. But also, it's so funny the thing about asking for help, but allowing the person that you're seeking the help from to do it in their way. that
That
is
part.
that
That's
is
a whole episode.
always, yes, that's a whole other episode too. Like that is always such a hot topic, especially in the Empower Wellness program. That comes up a lot. It's like, I want him or her to do it this way, but then they don't do it right. So then I have to do it. And I always challenge and push back a little bit. I'm like, okay, so Why is that not the right way? And what's
Yep.
going on here? And is it possible that maybe what we're seeing is
Yep.
that you want it done one way, and but realistically that can't be it. And so I'm so glad I'm so glad you touched on these. But one of the other ones you said kind of leads me to my next question. And again, I think this is a blind spot for me in terms of the work I do with mamas. And I'm so glad that mamas have kind of put it on my radar. Like, hey, we also want to work on our relationship. And sometimes I notice that the mamas, they come into the programs or we connect because they realize they are completely over prioritizing the needs of their partners or the needs of the relationship, and then they get lost in the shuffle. And I see this a lot with moms prioritizing or over prioritizing the needs of the kids too, and it's just kind of like there's no space for her. So I'm really curious to think or to hear from you, what advice would you have for mamas who feel like they have been maybe over prioritizing the needs of their partners or the
Mhm.
relationship, and then they no longer see themselves in the process?
Sure. I think it's one thing to kind of sit. I talk to clients about having a mirror moment where they sit with themselves literally in a mirror and check in with self and say, how am I really doing? And to wait for the answer to surface, right? I know that may not be an audible answer, maybe, unless you talk to yourself like I do in the mirror sometimes, but where you just kind of sit and you kind of reflect on where I really am and thinking about what it is that you need in the moment. And so, kind of what I wrote and thinking about my notes was remember that you and your partner fell in love or in like with each other.
Yeah.
This was before baby. This
Mhm.
was before so many of the other things that have become a part of our lives since connecting with this individual, this other person.
Mhm.
And so we really have to ask ourselves, and be very intentional about nurturing who we are as
Mhm.
women,
Mhm.
not just as partner, not just as mom, but like what does Erica need? What does Amber need? Not Amber the mom, not Amber the wife, but what does Amber need? And
Mhm.
really sitting with that question for a little bit and allowing yourself to tell you, because self will say, I need a nap.
Mhm.
Self will say, I need a really good plate of food. I need a really good girlfriend talk. I need a really good pedicure, manicure. I need to speak with a therapist. I need to follow up with my doctor. I haven't done that. I need to go to the dentist. Like I need to take care of me because
Yes.
really what I've learned as a mom, my little one is 6. What I've learned is that when I take time away from them, from her, from him, to just be with me, there is such a breath of fresh air. Like literally, I'm like, I
Yep.
can fully exhale. I can fully breathe deeply and know that I'm as valuable, not just because I'm a wife, not just because I'm a mom, but because I'm a human being, because I'm a woman, because I'm a woman of color. And so, really slowing ourselves down and really giving ourselves what we need. Sometimes it's helpful to connect with friends who can honestly help us reflect on how we've changed
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
good in becoming a wife and mom. And
Mhm.
then also we can ask where there's some disconnect from
Yeah.
who we were pre mom or pre wife, and
Mhm.
then in that space, being able to see if there's a way to tap back into that. So I tell clients to kind of get curious about who you were before you became a wife and a mom. What
Yeah.
things did you enjoy? What things did you do just for you? What things did you used to find fun? What things did you used to look forward to? And I know we're living in a pandemic season, and so things are a little different, a
Mhm.
lot different, let's be honest. And so we can't do all of the things we used to do, but
Mhm.
we can find some creative ways to tap back into some of the essence of who we were before, and even while we've been a wife and mom. The other thing we can do, and I think we have to be ready for this. So I say this with caution, right?
Mhm.
Is to ask our partner,
Ooh. Mm.
like, because they have opinions. They were there before
Yeah,
we had this little person. And so to
absolutely.
ask them, say, hey, I've been thinking about me and thinking about what I need. What do you remember about me before the kid?
Mhm. Oh, wow, that's a deep question. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's why I say you got to be ready because they might have a loaded response. And so you want
Mhm.
to be in the right head and heart space to receive that.
Mhm.
But really asking them that question because they know you and they see. And I had a really interesting conversation with my husband just a few nights ago, about me needing to take better care of me.
Mhm.
And he said, he was really, really helpful. He's a great mirror, and that's what I believe our partners are intended to be many times, but we don't always look at them that way, and we don't always look to them for that kind of feedback, but they can be really thoughtful and helpful and helping us to get back to ourselves, helping us to take better care of ourselves. And so his final response to me was, whatever we need to do to take good care of you, I'm
Mm.
willing to support that.
Mhm.
And I know that in the back of my mind, but oh my God, didn't it warm my heart to hear
To
him
hear
say
it.
that?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so I think that's the space of being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm not feeling so much like myself and I want to take better care of me. And I think I need your help. So
Mm.
can we talk first about what that would look like? And then these are the ways I might need you to support that effort for
Mhm.
me.
Oh my gosh, this was so grounding. Like, I loved hearing all of that. And honestly, it got me thinking, like, man, I need to go have a conversation with my husband.
Mhm.
Like,
They are much yeah, they're such a great resource that I don't think we are mindful of. Like, they've been with
yeah.
us. They've seen us at our
Mhm,
best, they've seen us at our worst, they've
mhm,
seen us through good times and bad, and we them too, like, in the opposite direction, but they can really be, again, a great filter for
mhm,
helping us to reconnect with the woman they fell in love with, because we loved
mhm.
her too at the time, and maybe we still do, but we've just gotten caught up in the busyness of what life is as a mom and a career woman,
Yep,
and so they can be really helpful with helping us get back to the ground and kind of assess
absolutely.
again.
Yeah, and but with all of those things, that the thing that really stands out to me is just making some space
Hmm.
for what you need.
Yep.
And it sounds like you gave a variety of ways, even if it's just kind of like doing some self-reflection,
Hmm.
or using your partner or your spouse as that mirror, or asking a friend, what's how have I changed for the good and maybe
Hmm.
not so good. Just kind of allowing that space to happen, and making room for it, I think, is a really good first start. And it just makes me think of the word intention. I think
Hmm.
as women and mothers, we are very intentional about um, so many things, but sometimes other things get lost in the shuffle, including
Like
ourselves.
us.
Yeah, ourselves. We get lost in the shuffle. But then also sometimes our partnerships and relationships too. And it's really hard to juggle and balance all of that. But I think you're already just helping us so much. So I want to ask you, for anyone who gets the book, which hopefully everyone does, you do so well at highlighting the 5 principles, like you said, that you've noticed that come up in your work, with couples, and with women. And so, again, because we're talking to moms right now, I'm really curious to know from you, what principle do you think would really stand out or resonate the most with the working mamas who might be listening today?
Great question. I think the second principle, health precedes wholeness.
I was
And
thinking
I,
that one
you were thinking that one too?
too.
Yeah. And I think that one because it speaks to the subtopics are who are you? What's in your bag? Clear and communicated expectations, and then requirements or demands of healthy relationships. And so I think about it in terms of, so often, again, as we just said, we get so caught up in the realm of being a mom, being a wife, being a career woman, that we lose sight of the fact that each of those is a separate entity of who we are,
Right.
and they each need their own kind of individual attention. And like, who has time for that? We all have to make the time, we have to make the space, we have to slow ourselves down. And so I think that principle, because it speaks to not just the health of the relationship, but the health of the person.
Mhm.
And then it speaks to the health of the relationship. And so this idea that, we talk about, or people have talked about the notion that, you introduce somebody to your partner and say, this is my better half. And I've never done that because I'm a whole. I
Yeah.
don't intend to introduce myself like I'm half and this is the other half.
Mhm, mhm.
Like, no,
Yep.
but my wholeness connects with your wholeness. And
Mhm,
so, this idea that health precedes that, though, like, I can't really be a whole being in a relationship if I'm not healthy for me first. And
mhm,
often we have to constantly come back to what health means for me. How do I make sure I'm healthy? How do I make sure I'm healthy so that I'm giving the best of me to the relationship, but not the best of me to the extent that I'm no longer good for me? I think
yeah.
there's a really interesting balance, a delicate balance in that, where
Mhm,
I'm giving the best of me to the relationship so that it's healthy, but I'm doing so out of the fact that I'm already kind of resourced as the best of me. So
mhm.
when I'm pouring clean water. I'm
Yeah,
not pouring recycled water or
right.
dirty water. I'm pouring good, nourishing water because I've nourished myself first, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense, and it made me think of a few things. One, I was just thinking of how, like, I think as like Black women and mothers, we tend to give,
Mhm.
but then we don't give back to ourselves, and it just makes me think we're trying to be whole people. We're trying to show up whole in these roles that we have, all the while not even stopping to take a moment to monitor. Well, how do I feel? Or am I
Mhm.
healthy? You can't. It's impossible to show up, whole self as mom, whole self as, employee, whole self as whatever you do, whole
Mhm.
self as, partner, but not checking in with yourself and thinking and saying, okay, well, am I healthy first? I
Mhm.
think sometimes that part is missed. And I get it, because I think there's just so many expectations and the bar is set high. And I think it's, partly, us like I said, I watched Super Women all my life, and it was a lot. But then also, society just expects so much of us. Society expects
Mhm,
us to be super women and expect us to not feel pain and expect
mhm,
us to just be able to pick up and go. But that's just not realistic. So that one resonates a lot. But also, there was something you said about like monitoring, health. Am I healthy? Am I healthy? And I actually was just talking to another mom, like right before I talked to you, about her journey of wellness and just how she's had to continually evaluate it for herself. And it's just
mhm,
because our lives are so dynamic, everything changes all the time. Our children
mhm,
change like rapidly, our partnerships and our spouses change, our situations change. And so at
mhm,
any given moment, what you need in terms of your health or your wellness might change. And you always need to be in tune and in touch with that. Or it will get missed or you will get
mhm.
lost in the shuffle. So that it made me
Mhm.
think of that.
Yeah, I think of a time that I was in session with a couple. I was talking to them about the importance of, we were walking through premarital themes and talking about the importance of health, physical health, emotional health, and all that. And I said, you have to make sure you take care, you see your doctor annually and you see the dentist and like you do your basic stuff. And it dawned on me, when was the last time I've been to the doctor for like my
Mhm.
physical? My kid
Yeah.
goes, I make sure my husband goes. Like I schedule their appointments and remind them. I'll take my kid and remind my husband to go. And I looked at my record and it had been 2 years.
Oh my.
And I was like, sis, what are you doing? You out here not seeing the doctor for two
I
years. And I had to like, I checked myself in love, but I was like, okay, we're going to do better.
Yep.
And so then I just got back in it. But I think it's important, as you suggested, that we remind ourselves, not in a chastising way, but in a very loving and compassionate way. Hey, sis, you got to take care of you too. You got to drink your water. You've got to get your rest. You've got to take a break. You've got to do for you all these great things you do for husband, for family, for children, for everybody else. Put
Yep.
yourself on the list. Make sure you're on the list. Make sure you don't leave the list because that's the
Mhm.
other thing. The list gets longer and then we turn the page and it's like, well, I'll just take this off. I just won't work out today. And then that becomes a week of not working out. And then it's a
Mhm.
month of not working out. And
Mhm.
then our clothes feel funny. And then we're just
Mhm.
like, why do I feel so? And it's like, sis, you haven't done a thing for you.
Yep.
And so it's really about checking in, as you suggested, checking in periodically and
Mhm.
having like a rhythm of checking in with ourselves
Yep.
because our children are going to get checked in on. They're going to let us know something's going on. We're going
Mhm.
to see that their clothes no longer fit. We're going to see that the shirt is tight, the shoes don't fit. That stuff is going to show. But for us, it's not always as clear. And so we do have to be intentional to check in.
Absolutely. And even I'm so glad you said like you noticed for yourself it had been 2 years because there's things like that pop up for me too. I
Mhm,
think just it's hard to as helpers and healers and
mhm,
people, I know both of us feel very passionate about the work that we do and we want to help other women, we want to help other mothers. But then we also have to realize, okay, well, I'm helping these women do this thing. I need to be doing it too. And so
mhm,
that's something that I'm also working on. I'm glad you're working on it too.
mhm.
The ever struggle.
This is why sisterhood is so good because we can
Right.
remind each other, like, are you taking care of
Exactly.
you? And that's helpful. Yeah.
Yes. Oh
Mhm,
my gosh. So you've already shared so much. Like you've already dropped so many gems, shared so many tips. And, I want you to, speak directly to any mama who feels like she's wanting to improve her partnership or her relationship with partner or spouse.
mhm.
Maybe any 3 to 5 tips that you might be able to provide to her. All the while knowing that, the mamas that are listening or mamas, the state of motherhood right now is very it's interesting. The pandemic has really
Mhm.
thrown some things at us. The one way that I think about the pandemic right now is like, I've been saying this a lot. It's kind of like shown a spotlight on all the things that were not going well. And it's kind of like,
Mhm.
okay, well, you were making it work, but guess what? It's not going to work like this anymore. And so I think that the state of motherhood right now is kind of fragile. There's a lot going on. And there are still mamas who want to work on their relationships. They want to show up. They want to prioritize the relationship all the while not lose themselves. So what would you have to say to
Sure.
them?
Sure. So I think first thing I wrote down is for people of faith. I'm a woman who's a Christian. My faith is solid. It is one of my greatest anchors in life. And so I say for the people of faith to be prayerful. I really do believe God wants us to win in love. He wants us to win in life. He wants us to win as we create lasting legacies for our families. And He wants to
Mhm.
partner with us. to make those decisions and choices, to slow things down, to take a real look and to take an assessment of how we're doing, how our partnership is doing, how our children are doing, how we're faring in this season of pandemic and motherhood that is stressed and strained in so many ways. Um, and so it's really that space of, again, slowing down, taking time to really sit with where we are, but then again, asking higher power, asking God to show us what we need to see, to equip us and empower us with what we need to do the work we need to do. The second thing is to be honest with yourself and with your partner about what's working well,
Yeah.
but also about what's in need of attention.
Mhm.
Because so often I started with what's working well, because so often, just by nature of how we are wired, we think about all that's wrong.
Mm.
And that's the first thing we talk to each other about.
Yep.
You didn't do this, you forgot to do this, how come this, how come this, how come this? And so really getting to the space where we can sit with a few moments and reflect on what's going well.
Mm.
How am I taking care of me
Yep.
in a way that I feel good about? How
That's
am I taking care of our partnership in a way that I feel good about?
mhm.
How are we showing up for the kid in ways that we feel good about? And so honoring those things first and saying, hey, we're doing a really good job with these things.
Yep. Oh,
Starting there first. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I could imagine, like, especially now in the last few months, things just feel very tense all the time for some families and for
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
couples. And they probably, maybe some of them are in the place where they feel like they're always maybe like nagging at each other, or always like
Mm-hmm.
criticizing, always judging. And so shifting that can kind of really change the tone of things. Yes, we're very vocal about the things that are not going well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, some of us
Mm-hmm.
could work on that a little bit more, but
Sure.
also I think all of us could work on, let's be honest about what's going well, and let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. So starting with that, and then talking about the things that need attention. The other thing I said is do the work. Like, it's
Mm,
work, yes, but nothing in our lives that has any value to us doesn't require work.
yeah.
You didn't become Dr. Amber Thornton without work.
Mm-mm, sure didn't.
You didn't become Cedric's, what I mean? You didn't become Cedric's wife and said C3's mom without work. You
Mhm.
didn't become an entrepreneur without work. The podcasts haven't been successful without work. Any of the businesses or jobs we have, any of the ladders we've climbed corporately and professionally or any other way, they all require a level of investment, a level of intentionality. And
Mhm.
that's what marriage requires. That's what healthy partnership requires. It does not just happen. I
Mhm.
think we think, you get introduced as husband and wife and you're like, yay. And like, that's it. It's like, no, that's the beginning.
Right. The only begin the
That's
beginning.
that's like the beginning of the beginning.
Yes.
And so you really do want to, and so I say find resources. We Over Me is a great place to start because it is written for lay people. It's not a whole bunch of big words in there. I wrote it for the average person who is looking to be non-average in their love and wanting to check in and tap into the wealth and knowledge that they already have, but then also to align that with some anecdotes from that I've seen in session with clients. Again, this book is birthed from my own experience as a wife, but then also through my client work. I've worked with quite a few couples, some very seasoned, 25 years plus, and some just starting out. I think I like him and he thinks he likes me. Should we buy this ring or no? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So, really finding those resources. The other thing I jotted down was to seek support.
Yeah.
When you realize that there's an issue that you're struggling to overcome together, seek support. The research shows that we tend to wait 5 to 7 years to seek therapy.
Mm. That's a long
Like,
time.
that's a long time.
Wow. That
And
is.
so typically what happens is by the time couples come to me and it's been that long, one or both of them has already kind of checked out.
Mhm.
And so at that point, it's not a futile effort, but it's hard. It feels like we're trying to push a car up a hill. Like,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
who's going to steer this? Because and who's going to push? Because I'm
Yep.
not going to do all of the heavy lifting by myself. You don't have to get in here with me. And so really acknowledging that when we start to see hints that we're not able to have the conversations we need to have, or
Mhm.
that maybe we lack the skills, or maybe we lack the emotional presence to be able to stick it out, or whatever it might be, when we notice that we're in this place and we're caught up in a cycle, seek support. Support can come in a very number of ways. So
Mhm.
for some people, it's mentor couples.
Yeah.
And those might be couples that are older than you in years or in years married, and those people that you trust. And so if you're people of faith, you want to be prayerful about those people because you don't want to share your business with everybody.
Mhm.
Note that the marriage therapist says do not share your business with everybody.
Right. Listen
I'm
to
gonna
the
say
marriage
that
therapist.
one more time. Do not share your marital business with everybody.
Mm.
Okay, now that that's been
Yes.
stated, but be intentional, be thoughtful about are there seasoned couples in your life? Again, they could be older in age, or they could be just older, more senior in terms of years married.
Yeah.
Those people can often be a great resource for us. We can talk to them about, hey, tell me about the earlier part of your marriage, earlier years, or around the time when you first had kids. How did you navigate work? And so you don't even have to go into the nitty gritty of your life story, but you can ask them to share bits and pieces of theirs. And many of them are willing to do that because they know that this is how we win at love. In addition to the mentor couples, you can also talk about accountability couples. And
Mhm.
those might be more peer relationships, right? There are people that are also married, maybe in your crew, your tribe, your circle. You might talk to them and say, hey, when something like this happens, how do you handle it? And maybe, again, you won't go into the details specifically, but have you ever faced something like this? And maybe loosely talking about a thing might be helpful in terms of sharing notes and comparing, or not just comparing for comparison's sake, but gaining some insight about what might be helpful, things that maybe you have not thought of, or just a shift in thinking, like, oh, I hadn't considered that, and so maybe that's a way that I might approach it. And then certainly couples therapy can always be a great resource. And those, I have clients that I meet with pretty regularly, and then others who we're on like a maintenance kind of visit. So similar to our cars, they come in every 3,000 miles or so,
Mhm.
and we touch base. So some of them are like quarterly, so like once a quarter they check in with me, and some of them have been with me from the premarital season to getting married, and others have met me well into their marriage, and they're just using therapy as a resource to help them navigate and troubleshoot when they reach an impasse or a fork in the road, and they're trying to figure out how to stay together on the same road to get to the ultimate destination of love.
Mhm. I love it. These were really excellent tips, and
Oh, I
again.
have one more. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no,
The
go
other
ahead.
one for partnerships is to take breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to take breaks. I mean, ideally, we would take vacations, but we know that's not really a thing right now. But if we can do a staycation, if we can
Mhm.
get somebody to keep a baby overnight, or if we can hire some help to come into the house that takes care of the baby if we're not quite ready to send baby anywhere, figuring out ways to prioritize time with your partner, time with yourself, because those things are essential to the quality of our lives. They're essential to the quality of our well being, and that directly impacts our home lives.
Yep.
If we're not tended to, it shows up. We're snappy, we're attitudinal, we slam plates down. Like, how you serving food and you like slinging it across the table? And like, they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? We slamming doors, and it's just like, ooh, something's going on. And they
Mhm.
say, how are you? Fine. Like, really? But you don't seem fine.
Yeah.
And so, really checking in with yourself, going for a little drive. Maybe you can't go far, but going for a little drive, maybe taking the scenic route to wherever you would generally go, finding ways to take those breaks, listening to a podcast, running a bubble bath, whatever is your thing,
Mhm.
giving that to yourself, doing those small things to take breaks for you, so that when it is time to show up in the fullness of life and the fullness of mom, you can do so again from a place that has been restored and refreshed and nurtured.
Yep. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love all of that. And again, thank you so much because it really helps me to think about this differently. Like, there was something that you said about like mentor couples or
Mhm.
accountability couples. And he was just like, wow, we do this in Empower Wellness Program and Balance Working Mamas with motherhood. But I've never even considered to do something like that. Like even in my own personal life when it comes to my relationship or my partnership. And I
Mhm.
just think it's helpful to hear that because it gets us to think about how to make time and space for our relationships and ourselves at the same times, and how to do that in ways that feel sustainable and feel good. But also when you were saying do the work, I love that. And one thing in my head I kept saying is, and also, allow the work to take the time it needs. I
Yes.
think that's that's something that comes up a lot in the work with moms is like, we have these visions of how we want things to be and we want them now. And we
Mhm.
probably feel that way about our partnerships too. Like I imagine, you probably have couples who show up after way too long and they're like, you know what? I need this to be fixed today. And you have to
Mhm.
explain to them, like, you know what, we're going to
Mhm.
do the work, but the work is going to take some time.
Sure.
And so really being
Mhm.
patient and being consistent and
Absolutely.
allowing the
Mhm.
work to really just take the time it requires is so
Mhm.
important too.
Absolutely. I liken it to like a gym analogy or any other kind of put in the work and did not see the return immediately. Like you don't invest in the stock market today and see an increase tomorrow. And
Mhm.
so you really can't come to therapy and expect that this 190 or 50-minute investment of time is going to be like revolutionary for your marriage. Most of the time, not the case. And so, as you suggested, doing the work, but then I tell clients to trust the process, that
Mm.
the work we're doing today is sowing seeds, and those seeds will grow, and you'll start to see the fruit of your labor. You'll start to see, things start to change, communication improve, connection feel more grounded, more connected. All those things can happen, but it does take some time. And so, really, you just think about, you go to the gym and you work out. You're not gonna have abs today. I look
Even
for
though
them every time. You go to the gym, you're like, let me see. You look in the mirror, you're like, let me see. It's like, no, ma'am, you don't have abs just yet. But if you keep at it, right, you just might get there. And so this idea of keeping at it and knowing that your labor is not in vain, knowing that it will come to pass if you continue. The hope and the goal too is that you have a partner who's willing to invest with you in the process. And so I think that's another piece of this that we have to be honest about. Sometimes couples
Mhm.
again come and one of them has already checked out. And so again, I think that's where the checking in with each other is so important. So that as your partner starts to burn out, if that's the case, you can kind of sense that. You can see that when you're attuned to each other. But if you're so disconnected, you might be missing that they're no longer reaching as
Mhm.
much as they used to, that they're no longer as attentive as they used to be. And so the checking in is super important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Erica, all this was so helpful. Like, thank you so much. It's helping me to, again, just think about how to make space for this when it comes to my work with mamas, but then also my own personal life. I'm thinking about, okay, well, how I'm making a lot of time for my business. I'm making a lot of time for the moms. How can I continue to make space and time for my partner and
Mhm.
myself as well, and make sure that we're well. So I'm excited to think about that a little bit more, especially in the new year. So thank you so much for being so helpful and so insightful and doing this work. And I'm so excited that you put this book out there. I think it's going to touch so many people. So before we close, please tell us a little bit more about how mamas can reach out to you, how people can find your book and read your book, and anything else coming up for you.
Sure. So again, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for being Dr. Amber Thornton, but for being a real person on and off the mic. That is so appreciated in my life, certainly as a person of authenticity. So yes, the book is available on my website, www.yourlifeswell.com/shop. You can purchase it there. Right now, there's a promo code. If you purchase 2 copies, you get a $5 discount. And I know we're looking for stocking stuffers and those kinds of things. It will not get to you by Christmas if you order right now based on the postal system, but I will get it to you as soon as possible. It will be signed by yours truly. Also, if you're a Kindle person, it's available on Amazon, only via Kindle though, on Amazon. All the hard copy books come directly from me. So I get to sign them with a personal little message to you. And so books are available there. Certainly, I'm available on social media and also my website, Your Life's Well is the website, www.yourlifeswell.com. And the IG handle is the same, Your Life's Well. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to upcoming events. We'll be going to do some sort of a virtual We Over Me small group kind of thing for couples in the new
Oh,
year.
that's going to be awesome.
I
Oh
know I'm
my
looking
God.
forward to
That is
it. So,
so
yeah,
exciting.
looking forward to that. And then also, wanting to do like a virtual book talk to kind of promote the book, but also to kind of have some opportunity to dialogue around concepts of the book, wanting to hear the feedback from people who have read it and who are applying the principles to get some real feedback about what the book is meaning and how it's causing positive impact for people. So looking forward to those things. So yes, be on the lookout for promotional things with regards to those details, because couples are like, hey, so when are we doing a group? I've had a few couples like, so when is the group? Put me in the group. I want the group information. So I'm looking forward to
That is
that.
awesome. I love this, Erica. Like, I love it. I'm so excited to hear about that. So definitely keep us posted. I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes today so some mamas can reach out to you so they can purchase the book. But again, thank you so much. This was so helpful. I appreciate you making the time to talk with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Hey mama, Balanced Working Mama is growing. I want to make sure that you stay connected and up to date with everything happening over here. So you don't miss any of the good stuff, head over to balancedworkingmama.com, sign up for the newsletter. You'll always be the first to learn of any new podcast episodes, events, programs, and you'll get a hello from me every now and then. So sign up today, mama, because I want to connect with you soon. Hey, mamas. So, I hope that you enjoyed that episode that features Erica St. Bernard. She is so amazing, you all. She is a good friend to me. Um, and I'm so grateful that she's in my life, but also she is a bomb couples therapist. She does such good work. I can't say enough about her work and the value that she adds to the field of mental health, particularly for Black women, Black couples, and those who do have a desire to integrate faith into their experience with their mental health professional. So I highly encourage you check her out if you are in Maryland and you're able to see a licensed provider in the state of Maryland, even if it's virtual. Add her to your list. You won't be disappointed at all. Also, I highly encourage you to check out her book, We Over Me. It's so good. I've been reading it, and I think that I have benefited a ton from this book as well. So, let's get into our reflection before I let you all go. And, as you've listened to the episode, I'm sure that you've been thinking about yourself in terms of partnerships or relationships that you might have. And so, one thing I want you to consider for the mamas who are partnered, might have a spouse or a partner in the home, or a long-term relationship, really think about what are some ways that you can reconnect with your partner. I know that when we have children, sometimes our focus shifts from our partnerships to our children and our homes and all the things that need to be done to maintain them. And not only that, but our work and our businesses. But we don't want our partnerships and our relationships to suffer. So consider, what are some things that you and your partner can do to reconnect a little bit, especially if you've noticed that there has been a bit of disconnection. But with that, I also want you to really think about, what are some ways that we can reconnect that also really, really, really feel good for me, that will contribute to my wellness, that will add to my wellness. I'll give you an example. So, um, by the time you all are listening to this, Valentine's Day will have passed. And I'm sure many of you maybe have had plans. Of course, the pandemic makes it totally different. But I know for me, one thing that has really helped me to reconnect with my husband, especially during that weekend, was to just get away with him. He actually surprised me with a staycation, and we just stayed in a local hotel together. No kid, no dog. I made the decision to completely unplug for that weekend. So, no Instagram, no social media, no work, which y'all know is hard for me. But I realized that that was necessary and needed for me, in terms of needing to just unclear or unclog my head and clear some things. But also, I get to really spend more quality time, really intentional time, focused time with him. And it was amazing. I'm so glad that we did that, especially before baby girl got here. So, what are some things that you can do with your partner? It might not be a staycation, but it might be something else. It might be 30 minutes at the end of your busy day to really just talk to one another. Or it might be you all deciding, hey, let's eat our meal together. Whatever it is, consider some ways that you can reconnect with your partner. For those mamas who are not partnered right now, not in a relationship right now, I haven't forgotten about you. There are other relationships that are important and contribute to our well being, and it's important to reconnect with those too. I think throughout the pandemic, relationships that we may have had with friends, with families, with close loved ones might have felt strained or isolated a bit because we don't get to see and talk to them like we used to. But think of a way that you can reconnect, reach out to them yet again, whether it is committing to a bi-monthly Zoom call with that friend. And it could just be 10 minutes, or a phone call, or, making sure that you're checking in together, making sure that you're really communicating what you need and what you would like in terms of reconnecting with that loved one. So we all got some work to do. We all got some things to consider. And again, I thank Erica so much for offering her knowledge and her skills to us today. So that's all, mamas. I hope that you all have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you all soon. Hey, Mama. Thank you for listening to the Balanced Working Mama podcast. If you love this podcast, please be sure to rate it and share it with another mama that you know. And don't forget to follow me and Balanced Working Mama on Instagram. I'll talk to you soon.